Hello, I'm Don Macleay, Green Party candidate for Mayor of Oakland in this election. I've been running for mayor since Martin Luther King Day, January of this year. And I have to say that now that the campaign is ending and the election is upon us, I'm very encouraged by what I've seen around Oakland. We have been all over this city. We have met grassroots groups, local activists, school teachers, and all kinds of other people who are really working each in their own way to make this a better city to live in. And my experience of it is very uplifting. I'm very encouraged for our city's future, and I'm really very encouraged by what we've seen out there in the neighborhoods. I'm also very proud of the way we've handled ourselves. We have stayed away from the money. We have stayed away from the influentials in the influence game. We have put forward regular proposals and not wasted our time throwing mud or any of the other things. You will not see a Don Macleay ad. You won't see any hate mail through your door. None of that's going to happen because we just didn't go there. What we did do was we put some good ideas on the table. Our message is simply a message of reform. We want to reform the budget, and we want to call a convention and bring everybody to the table and come up with a new, comprehensive, intelligent budget and scrap the one we got. We're tired of working piecemeal. It's not working, and I think it's time for us to really have all the resources at the table and come up with something better. I also want to change the way council is elected, and I'm going to stick on this. Our districts do not look like our neighborhoods. We need districts that look like our neighborhoods, and access to running for council has to become a lot more community friendly. Community leaders should be on council. Council should be composed of community leaders. Right now, the council we have tends to be elected in districts that are not really representing communities. The other thing we'd like to reform is our relationship with the neighborhood groups. We go all across this city, and one thing that the neighborhood groups all keep telling us is, if you're elected, why should you listen to us? Well, we don't really think we should have to have good politicians there to be listened to, and when you have bad politicians, you don't. So our idea of empowerment to the communities is to give them political power. It's called devolution. We would like to see these community neighborhood organizations elected, and part of the city budget and some of the city authority gets passed to these local communities where they can have more control of their local area, and then we have to listen to them. I'm also willing to cut a deal on the redevelopment money. Be very clear, we spend more money on redevelopment than our entire budget. It's about $560 million to redevelopment, to well, that's debatable, $480 million to general fund. What's that mean? That means we spend more on these projects than we're spending on our parks, our schools, our police, and we are in crisis. It is not time to indulge these kinds of things. I'd be happy to turn to the state and cut them a deal. And that $500 million, we'd split it up. Our state is strapped for fund. The state is not the enemy. We want our state to be successful. We could suspend redevelopment for a couple of years and have money for our schools, have money for our general fund, and have money to resolve the pension issue. So I'm a citizen candidate, and if I'm elected, this is going to be an interesting affair. So what would I do? Well, one of the first things I would do is I would reach out to all the other people who have run for mayor and run for city council in this election. That is a talent pool. These are a lot of very good people, and everyone that was willing to work for Oakland, I would try to find some way to have them continue to work for Oakland in my administration. The other thing I'd have to do is hire from within for the top jobs. Some people say there's 12, some people say there's 18, depends how you count it. But those top departmental jobs, I want to hire from within our existing Oakland workforce, or people who've recently been in our existing Oakland workforce. If I am a citizen mayor, one amateur is enough. We're going to need some professional people, but we need our own professionals, not professionals from Detroit or people who go from city to city. We've had enough of those. Then at the second and third layer of management, which is a very important layer of management, that's where a lot of what gets done really gets done, I want to start making places for people who are not from City Hall, but who are members of our community. People have shown a real commitment to working for the community, and people who have skills to offer. We need to bring in those outside skills. We need to renew our management, and I would like to get a lot of community members down there in those second and third level jobs. These are like the top running jobs of the actual operations of the city. And from there, we should develop a resource pool of people who came from the community and who are qualified to hold the top jobs and who will bring those new ideas into management of our day-to-day city affairs. I'm of the opinion that money in elections is unethical. Well, that we've seen a lot of unethics in this election. A lot of people want to paint Don Parada as the big evil guy. As far as I can tell, the main difference between him and the other three semi-official candidates is he had more money. He's a state-level candidate, he had state-level resources. They're city-level candidates, they had city-level resources. Same thing on a smaller scale. All of them were using money, all of them were using influence, all of them are using paid political advertising, and anytime you see something glossy come through your mailbox, you have to ask yourself, where's the money come from? Do they work for me, or do they work for the people that gave them the money for that? That said, there was also not a word out of any of the four major candidates, Parada, Kwan, Kaplan, or Tuman, about how we would get money out of politics. It wasn't proposed. They were willing, the little ones were willing to criticize the big one, but no one ever said, hey, how are we going to have an election in our local community, which should be the easiest elections? How are we going to have an election that doesn't depend so much on paid political advertising? That said, now I'd like to talk about how we should vote in this election. And I do not want us to vote for Don Parada. I have no stake in the game as far as these accusations that are against him. Frankly, if you have accusations, you take them to the DA, not a whisper campaign. But on the other hand, Don Parada backs certain development policies. He's behind the Oak to 9th project. He's behind other big projects that I just disagree with. I think they're wrong for Oakland. He also has chosen to have alliances, in particular his alliance with the prison guard union, which I just find as a conflict of interest with what we need to do. We really need to get into community policing. We need to get into restorative justice. And frankly, those guys have not been our friends in this. And I don't see any reason why they should be. They might say they are now. I'm not convinced. And the third reason I wouldn't vote for Don Parada for mayor is we've had two star power mayors. Jerry Brown was supposed to sweep in here and be the big guy and make everything right. And then our current mayor was supposed to sweep in here and be the big guy with all the big connections and make everything right. And do we really need a third if it didn't work twice? Another person people are thinking about is Joe Tuman. I have a lot of respect for Joe Tuman. He was at one point my professor at San Francisco State. I certainly have a lot of respect for Joe Tuman's ethics. Unfortunately, I find myself disagreeing with him and are things that are big enough not to vote for him. Joe Tuman is very in favor of big box retail. And frankly, I just don't want that in Oakland. We have one Walmart too many. We were not consulted on that one, and I don't think we need any more. I think Oakland's development does not need to imitate the suburbs or try to create another San Leandro. We have our own future, and I think we should choose one that's more in keeping with the needs of our people. Joe is also into fixed staffing levels for the police. I just don't believe in those benchmarks. I think that we can open our minds to different types of solutions, and I'm very, very in favor of having more civilians work in the police department. So I'm not really into prescribed fixed staffing levels. Now in this election, we have ranked choice voting. That means, well, I feel that means you should vote your heart in round one. And I don't care who you support. If you support me, or you support Rebecca Kaplan, you support Arnie Fields, any of the candidates, you are wasting your vote if you don't vote your heart for vote number one. That is what a ranked choice voting system is about. That first choice vote is your message to all the other voters in this district, all the people in Oakland. This is who I would have really wanted. Now, that does not mean that you can't get tactical. Now, I'm asking for your first choice vote. I'm very glad to be the person that pushes the message of reform. And if it happened, I would be very glad to be the mayor who pushed the message of reform. I said that second vote is tactical, so here are my recommendations. I plan to vote for Rebecca Kaplan as my second choice vote, and for Jean Kwan as my third choice vote. I plan to do that because I think of their views, their political views, the actual proposals they put out as being the ones I would like most of the candidates who might win. Those would be the two candidates who I feel that I would be most comfortable with the ideas they've been putting forward. My party, the Green Party, switches that around, and they say to vote for Jean Kwan second and for Rebecca Kaplan third. I can understand that, and a big part of the thinking is they're afraid that this election will get decided before the third votes are counted. I don't agree, because there's actually 10 candidates in the race, but it's a reasonable way to vote. And a vote for Don Macleay first and Rebecca or Jean second, I would think both intelligent votes. Now, as I said before, I think the budget should be scrapped. I really hate the budget. I really hate the micromanagement of the budget, and I really hate these initiatives. Despite that, I'm going to be voting for two of them because I don't think we can stand the damage that it would happen if we don't. One is BB, Measure BB, which allows Measure Y to continue, and the other one is Measure L, which will help our schools. Now, I'm thinking of that as a stopgap measure. What we need to do is reform our overall budget. In the meantime, we want to make sure that our schools and our restorative justice and our community policing has some funding. With that same thought in mind, I've changed my position on the parcel tax. I'm reversing myself, and I'm going to vote against the parcel tax. I was originally wanting to vote for it because I was afraid of the damage it would do to the police force and to community policing if we didn't. Well, it's too late. That damage is now done. We now have done years worth of damage, millions of dollars worth of damage, and the parcel tax will not fix it. So at that point, the parcel tax just becomes another piece of micromanagement, another regressive tax on our people, and there's no real advantage. There's nothing to save by voting for it. So I'm going to vote no on that one, and I'm just going to continue to push for overall reform of the tax structure. Now, whoever wins this election, be it Don Parada or Arnie Fields, we need to support that person. And I don't care if we have a Mayor Kaplan, a Mayor Kwan, a Mayor Hodge, whoever, or a Mayor Macleay. That mayor needs to succeed. Oakland needs our next mayor to be a success. We need to work with him, and we need to have a successful term of a mayor, no matter who it is. And I'm going to work for that successful term. Now, truth is what Oakland needs is not one politician or another. What Oakland needs is our schools up in a better place. What Oakland needs is our crime down and staying down. And we need to have jobs in. Those things are above and beyond anything whoever gets elected in this office. And we all need to work for that. We need to accept the judgment of the voters on Tuesday, and we all need to work for that goal. It's something we all agree on, and it's time on November 3rd, it's time to let bygones be bygones and see what we can do for our city. We need to make sure our city is a success, first and foremost. Win or lose, I am committed to these goals. And no matter who wins this election, you will find me out working for these goals. And you'll find me with the members of my campaign and the Green Party, and we'll be working for our community. Thank you.